maybe. Okay, it's all right. It's all right. I'll tell him. It's fine. Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, it's that.
Went to University of Florida for undergrad and for law school, and then came back to Jacksonville and started working at the Office of the Public Defender, where I spent the majority of my career. I then went into private practice for a couple of years before I ran for judge and was elected in 2012. And so I love what I do. The great part about being county court judge here in Duval County is that we get to rotate every other week. So I'm in criminal this week. Next week I'm in civil. We rotate every 17 weeks between first appearance court, which is where I was last week. So we handle all of the cases for everyone who gets arrested. You see everyone every day for that. On the civil side, our caseload is becoming a little more interesting now because the jurisdictional limits that we handle keep increasing since I've been on the bench. So I handle all the civil cases now that are up to $30,000 in dispute, but it'll be going up to $50,000 here in next year. do all the landlord tenant stuff, which, as you can imagine, during COVID was very interesting and kept us busy on that side. But when I am not in the courtroom, I love being on the court. I play tennis as much as I possibly can on the weekends and on a working women's team over at San Jose Country Club. My son turns 14 next week. He is almost 6 feet tall, so I am looking up to him now, and he is getting ready to start at Wolfson in the fall, which is super exciting since that's where I went. So it's all kind of coming full circle. But one thing that I thought I would add to today's talk, since today is Flag Day, and so I completely forgot who we had for a speaker today, but Flag Day also coincides with the birthday of the Army. So it's I don't know if anyone in here used to watch The Big Bang Theory, but there were fun facts about flags that Sheldon used to have a little series that he would do. So, you know, just to go over a few facts about Flag Day, it was became approved by Congress on August 3rd, 1949, after several proclamations by previous presidents. There have been 27 versions of the American flag, and our current flag is now 245 years old today. The colors of the flag were not just chosen by accident. The colors actually do have meaning. The red symbolizes hardiness, valor. The white symbolizes purity and innocence. And the blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. The current design of the flag was actually created by a 17-year-old high school student from Ohio who submitted to the design in a contest in 1958, and it was chosen by President Eisenhower. The flag itself, or at least I should say a snippet of the flag that flew at Fort McHenry, had a 2-inch by 5-inch swatch of it sold at an auction in 2011 for $38,000. The rest of that flag is still on display at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, which I saw a few years ago when we went on the DC trip with my son. Some people realize that the flag can actually be displayed for a full 24 hours, assuming it has proper illumination. I know they always talk about it being from sunrise to sunset, but as long as it has proper illumination and can be seen in the dark, it can be flown for 24 hours. And it is apparently meant that once the flag touches the ground, it needs to be burned or disposed of. Entirely true. If it touches the ground, it can be washed and dry cleaned and continue to be used. However, if it does become torn and beyond repair, you need to actually have there's a ceremony that you can have it burned. I've had a flag that my godson's actually about to be an Eagle Scout. So anytime we've had an issue, I always give it to the Boy Scouts, and they have their ceremony that they do to dispose of the flag in a dignified manner. And lastly, there have been 5 American flags that have made it to the moon. Apollo missions 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17 all ended with an astronaut placing a flag on the moon. So there you have it. Fun facts about flags for your Tuesday.
That was awesome. We have 2 new member inductions today. One is actually both of these names have a little bit of conjecture behind their pronunciation. So that moving part has been taken out of my hands and goes to the person who is bringing them to the club, Crystal Browen, and past president Jay Plotkin, who is doing the charge. Please come forward. That's good. Anywhere that you saw.
Oh, I do. Good afternoon. I'd like to introduce to you Mitch Ghani and Chris Roberts. They have been coming for a few weeks and everybody's had an opportunity to meet with them. Mitch is a patent attorney who I met through the Jacksonville Bar Association's Intellectual Property Committee a number of years ago. And then I encountered him at a small business resource network meeting about 3 years ago, and he had started his own patent practice. And I told him that when he got tired of being a solo practitioner, he might want to come join me at Marks Gray. So eventually he did do that, and I have gotten to know him better. And his cohort here is Roberts, who is his patent agent that helps him draft all of their patent applications. Ironically, they have known each other since high school. They met playing on the tennis team in high school, and they both ended up going to Florida State University. Yay, and graduating. And then from there, they went in different directions. Mitch went on to law school, and Chris went on to work in, as an engineer. And then later on got his master's degree from Georgia Tech. Okay. So, and they both have landed here. They are building a patent practice together, and they make a great team. Mitch has 3 children under the age of 5. And so, and he has a lovely wife who came to our Royal Casino night. And Chris, having watched Mitch, has stayed single. And in my working with them, I realized that they are the perfect age and the perfect type of person to become a Rotarian. They both have a commitment to community and making a difference in the world, not only through what they do with their clients, but also through their families and through community service. So I have nominated, and please welcome them.
So the good news is that maybe in a couple of years, not only can we have Rotary meetings, but we can have Marks Gray shareholder meeting. Since this is a charge to welcome you to Rotary, and being a Big Bang fan, and instead of fun with flags, we'll do fun facts. Judge, you know what else is on the moon besides flags? A copy of the Rotary 4-way test is on the moon. In fact, and some of y'all may not know. At any rate, it's always a great honor to have the opportunity to induct new Rotarians. We have this sort of tagline that if you're here, and you probably have been here maybe for some other inductions, you know, we always say that you're now the 2 newest Rotarians in the world. And it's, you know, it's kind of a cliche for those of us that have heard it many times, but it is my honor on behalf of the board and directors and the members of our club to ask you to join us and to give you the opportunity to be a part of our club. But I want to maybe do this a little bit different than some other charges that I've done or that we've done in the past. And I want to think about, you know, 2 examples of what it means to be the 2 newest Rotarians in the world. Although if I wait a couple of minutes, you may not be the 2 newest Rotarians in the world. I want to think of a couple of examples, one sort of more local and one kind of more worldly. And in doing this, what I want you to do is think about something that if you haven't had the opportunity, I recommend that you do, is go on that Rotary International website. It's phenomenal, the stuff that you see on there and what we do as Rotarians. But I've always been interested in this from the website. It says Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who come together to make positive, lasting change in communities at home and abroad. So in order to sort of exemplify, you know, what it means to be the 2 newest Rotarians in the world, what it means to be Rotarians, I thought of 2 examples that are kind of recent and both touch me in very different ways. One is on a local front. You may know that we recently lost our past president, Ted Johnson. You know, Ted, if you read his obituary, if you knew Ted, you know, Ted was a phenomenal person, did phenomenal things in this community in so many different ways. But if you asked Ted, one of the things he was most proud of in his life was being a Rotarian. Ted was a plus 50-year Rotarian with plus 50 years of perfect attendance. And I should say this in the chart, but as of today, I have 1 week of perfect attendance. But Ted was someone. If Ted walked into this room as a Rotarian at a meeting, Ted would have space. Ted would shake hands with people. He'd introduce themselves to people he didn't know, and he'd just be happy to be here. He was a servant in the community who helped Rotary both through service, through charitable donations, through just time and effort, and being a part of our projects. And I can't think of a better example to emulate than Ted Johnson talking to you here in a charge. The second example, on a more worldly basis, is what's going on in Ukraine. We had at our club, I don't know if either one of you had the chance to be here, but we had a few weeks past, we had a woman who was a Rotary ambassador who spent time over there because she was so much a part of the community there and the ties that she had made through years as a Rotary ambassador. Then she went back to see what she could do. And she met with Rotarians and saw some of the things that they were doing. And literally, we learned about Rotarians that put their life on the line to help with Rotary. And then I think it was last week. Frankly, in the many years that I've been to Rotary, this is one of the most phenomenal things I've ever participated in. I don't know how many people had a chance to do it, but we had a Rotary meeting, Zoom, of over 1,000 Rotarians meeting with Rotarians from Ukraine. And we were learning about, what they did in Ukraine and how literally Rotary is, like, in many respects, the last line of service for some of these people. People, I think, in Rotary have lost their lives doing community service and bringing these people in these horrendous circumstances, the things that they need. So when I was thinking about giving you this charge and thinking about a local person who made Rotary a part of his life, and the worldwide service that Rotary does, it just made me think that there can be no better way to tell two new Rotarians what Rotary is about. So my challenge to you is to embrace this opportunity to become part of 1.2 million Rotarians around the world who have this attitude of worldwide community service. And when you walk into a room of Rotarians, a little less serious note, have fun. At its core, Rotary is about people and engaging with people. And like we always says, it is what you make of it. So I challenge you to become a part of what Rotary does locally and internationally. And I challenge you to walk in the room like Ted Johnson with a big smile on your face and enjoy what you're doing, because we'll enjoy having you. So welcome to Rotary. Thank you. Go ahead. All right. I think this is stuff that the quiz will be on next week. Okay. If you pass, we'll let you come back. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
I would remind you to please sign up for the Hail and Farewell. It will be held here in the DoubleTree on Tuesday evening, June 28th. No lunch meeting that day, and it begins at 6 p.m. Spouses and guests are welcome at no charge, June 28th. Let's see. Assistant Governor B4, are you with us today for some information that you would like to give us?
I'm here, Richard, but I'm not prepared to do that. So can we do it at the next meeting? I'm sorry. I just saw your email.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I will somehow mask my disappointment, and we will do it next week. Okay. Another reminder that Mike Darrow will have something for us at the end of our meeting today. So as you're getting up to leave, please remember that one last thing that Mike will tell us about. To introduce visitors and guests, George Armstrong. Welcome, George.
It's been so long since I've been here in person, maybe I should introduce myself. We're pleased today to have as visiting Rotarians, Gary Kelly. Jerry Kelly. Jerry Kelly.
Like my dad spells it. People say it's spelled wrong.
Welcome.
Jerry. Hey, Jerry.
And we have two guests with us. Ikara Bouvier is with the U.S. Army. And Staff Sergeant Keisha Reed. And we'll introduce our speaker a little bit later. Ryan Maloney, you have a visitor.
I do. I have a guest, Max. Stand up. This is Max Lane. He's a second-year law student at the University of Florida, and he's a summer associate at my firm, Jones & Burr, and he's a smart cookie.
You ready? I'm ready.
All right.
Welcome you today. So glad you came along, glad you came our way. Our hand of fellowship is yours, sunshine or in rain. We here at Rotary say welcome, come again.
And now to introduce our program, I give you Les Logan.
Happy birthday, everybody.
Happy birthday.
Today, we are celebrating the 247th birthday of the U.S. Army. It was on this date that the Continental Congress authorized the formation of a standing army to take on arms against the British for American independence. To celebrate the Army's past and to talk about today's Army, we have invited the Jacksonville U.S. Army Recruiting Battalion, who has been a fantastic and a longtime supporter of our oratory program. Our speaker today is the current executive officer of the Jacksonville Recruiting Battalion. Major Jillian Erickson has almost an unbelievable record, which we have printed in the gear, but I wanted to point out a few highlights of her background. First of all, she may be one of the most educated people you'll ever meet. She has a bachelor's degree in science and geology, a bachelor's degree in secondary education and economics, and a master's degree in emergency management. She has served our country in Germany, Iraq, and Afghanistan. She enlisted in the Army as a specialist E4, training as a paralegal, and becoming a paratrooper specializing in detainee operations. I'm very honored to introduce Major Jillian Erickson.
Well, good afternoon. And recently, I just got accepted to the PhD program at Rutgers. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, you're undereducated.
I know, I'm bored because both my sons are in college now, and it's just the dog and I. And so I had to do something. So I decided to go back for education, do something after the Army, and I want to be a professor. I'll go back to education. So thank you for having me here. My boss, Lieutenant Colonel Bell, always tells me to just tell my story, because my story is different and unique, but it's also intertwined with service. And of course, intertwined with why I joined the Army, and also what the Army offers us. So grew up in Northeast Ohio, right on Lake Erie, perfect town. Still, they don't lock their doors. It was just the greatest community, played sports, loved life, wonderful family. Mother was a member of the Daughters of American Revolution, that kind of picture life. But always intertwined in that was service. You could go to every neighbor and every house in my community, and there would be somebody whose father, brother, cousin, or child had served at least 4 years in the military. And then that was what it was about. In our family, it was two things that you knew for certain. One was you were going to go to college, and one, someone was going to serve. And that's just how it was in the community. So my brother served, joined the Marines, and then I went to college, went to Ohio State on a scholarship for athletics and had a really good time. Then I left and thought I was just going to have a normal life in Ohio. Then did a few things for the YMCA, which is service oriented. And then I went back to college to get a degree because I wanted to be a school teacher, and got another bachelor's degree. Now, how does all this lead to the Army? Because as you can see, I was not sedentary. I didn't want to just stop. I didn't think that I would just go to college and come home and settle down. I always wanted to do something different, was always striving, looking for something else. But I was never settled and never happy with my jobs. I would teach school for 2 years in a school and leave. I would move to another part of the state. I was just never happy with what was happening. But what happened was I started teaching high school, and I was teaching history and biology. And I must have taught history very well, because when 9/11 hit, I was in the schoolroom, I was in the classroom teaching. I couldn't believe it was happening. But at the same time, what happened afterwards is what made me join the Army. I must have taught US history and sacrifice so well, because I noticed that certain students that I had were graduating and joining the Army. They were joining the Marines, they were joining all the services because we were at war. And I was married at this point with 2 little kids. And I came home one day and I told my husband, I think that it's time for me to stand up. I've spent all this time teaching everybody else to stand up, and now it's time for me to stand up. And he looked at me and he said, well, you know, have 2 kids, we'll travel, join. Why don't you see what you want? I said, I've always wanted to join. I watched all the commercials. They were great, jumping out of airplanes and all of that. Why not? So I called the recruiter. I wasn't young. I'd already been teaching school for 10 years. And I said, I would like to join the Army. And this is my education. I didn't say I was physically fit. I said, these are my degrees. I said, you have 2 bachelor degrees. You come right down here. And I went to the recruiter. And 60 days later, I was in the Army. I did not join the Army to be an officer. I didn't feel I had a right to lead soldiers because I knew nothing about the Army. So I enlisted in the Army. Because I had a degree, I went in as an enlisted E4 specialist. And I was the oldest specialist at my basic training. Basic training was very interesting because what happened was all of a sudden I'm around a bunch of people that are just like me, that weren't settling, that wanted to keep pushing things, that wanted to keep being educated, that wanted to serve. And so all of a sudden I felt at home. I felt at home because for once we were all on the same mission together. And it wasn't just a mission of defending the country, but that is it. We were also on the mission to find out what there is in life. And so I went through basic training, and yes, I was a paralegal. I decided that if teaching didn't work out, I wanted to be a paralegal. I did make it through a semester of law school. That just was not working for me after my first bachelor's. So I said, I'll be a paralegal. Why not? What I found out very early is that once you leave basic training, you go to another class. And this is the first thing you learn. There's 150 military occupational specialties in the Army, 150 jobs you can choose. And when you get done with basic training, I went to paralegal school, and I actually became a certified paralegal, not just in the Army sense, but in the sense I still have my paralegal certification. So the Army gave that to me and paid me and gave me food and shelter. So that was free. That was the first thing I learned about what the Army gives you by just volunteering. I was in rooms full of other people like me that were going to be paralegals. And there were a couple lawyers in there that were struggling and they decided to join the Army. Back then they were paying our student loans, which was also a plus. Then when we were at paralegal school, somebody came up and said, who wants to jump out of airplanes? And I said, me. And that was when I raised my hand. And they said, if you raise your hand, go running over there. Of course, it was 4 in the morning and it was dark and we were in PT gear. But I said, what the heck? I want to jump out of airplanes. I jumped out of a few when I was a kid with my dad. It seemed pretty neat. And I'd heard the, all the tales about that. So I went and I trained. And when I graduated to be a paralegal, they put me on a bus and drove me down to Fort Benning, Georgia. And I was in airborne school. To this day, I'm still the oldest graduate of airborne school. So yes, a lot of Motrin. I took a lot of Tylenol and just perseverance. And when they told you to do something, I did it, but it was amazing. Went to airborne school, graduated, and now I get orders to go to one of the most impressive units in the United States Army, 82nd Airborne. The storied history, the past, the all-American division. They were the ones, they jumped in. They're the ones that broke through. I mean, they're the World War II. They set the stage for everything. And I got there. And what I found out was that there were units there that still didn't have any females in them. There were infantry units. Well, I got there and I was very excited. And so I became a paralegal and somebody said, we need someone to jump in behind with the infantry guys because they have to make sure when they detain people that's done legally. Because of course we have to do everything legally and all the paperwork. Who wants to do that? I raised my hand again. So I became the only female in an all-male battalion of infantry soldiers. And that was fun. My husband had a lot of barbecues and grilled a lot before I deployed with them, so they knew who I was and that he was there. And then we deployed. It was amazing to see that when you're deployed, everyone sees, I guess, I look at the media differently now. What I saw when I was deployed was soldiers not only fighting, but helping people, grabbing someone's hand and picking them up and supporting them, and all the projects that we do, building schools and building medical facilities. And I didn't just do detainee operations. We literally had people coming to legal work. I mean, I was doing legal work on things that I didn't know, investigations, redacting. I would sit there and redact and read through things. So I learned that also. So the second thing I learned was that when I came back from those deployments was that it was time to be an officer. So once again, who wants to be an officer in the Army? My hand went up. So there's different ways to become an officer, but there's a way that's called General Select. And every division commander, a general, a 3-star up, he's allowed 18 picks a year to go to OCS. And I was the first pick of General Scaparrotti in 2006. 2 sentences changed my life. He wrote 2 sentences. He said, Specialist Jillian Erickson is my candidate for Officer Candidate School, and she will leave post haste. No boards, no anything. And so 2 weeks later, I was at Officer Candidate School in Fort Benning, Georgia, which was amazing. Now, they picked my MOS because I had a biology degree. So for some reason, they thought I could be a chemical officer. I don't know, but the Army saw that. So they gave me lots of science classes, lots of chemical. One next thing, the professors that teach officers are actually professors from colleges. Missouri Science and Technology, They were my professors at Captain Career Course for the chemical, biological and nuclear. So I'm a chemical, biological, nuclear war officer. And so that's my job. But my education and my professors were actually professors from Missouri Science and Technology. So once again, the Army finds the best to educate their soldiers, the best. So now, still haven't paid anything. They're paying me. And I have all of these certificates just packing up on top of each other, and I'm an officer now. And we get to travel. So the Army sends us to Germany. Amazing. And my children and my husband and I get to live in Germany for 3 years and travel all over Europe and do the job that I love, and my children get to see the world. And during this time, they keep asking, do you want to do this? And I keep raising my hand. And every time I raise my hand, the Army lets you go and do it. I became a tech escort. What that is we go down into the caves and caverns. And because a lot of, in Afghanistan especially, a lot of the laboratories where they were making the bombs that they were releasing on the people and on us were down in caves and caverns. So we would go down in those, rappel down in. Then I became a hybrid, EOD, if you know what that is, the bomb ordnance. I decided to leave the chemical world and go and become an EOD technician. So I wore the big suits and we go and disarm the bombs. So EOD, same thing, raise my hand, and certificates just keep coming. And this is me, but everybody else who joins the Army, all they have to do is raise their hand and the same thing happens. So all these certificates that I'm getting, they're not just for the Army, they're good in the outside world. And that's what we try to tell all the kids that are recruiting and the young adults. The Army is going to pay you and give you this great adventure, and they're going to give you education and certificates. And all you have to do is raise your hand, and that's it. And that's what the Army's done. My last job, I just spent 4.5 years in Key West. I mean, come on, right? I was in Key West. My kids graduated from Key West High School. Key West, Florida. And what you don't realize is Key West has one of the largest international, interagency, inter-service task force in the country. And our entire job for 4.5 years, my entire job was making sure that weapons, drugs, drug traffickers, human traffickers stayed away from our borders to keep everybody safe. Because what comes with the drugs is bad stuff, and everything goes through the East Pack and the Carib. It's just a unit sitting down in Key West where you're all out on Duval Street, a block away. We're sitting there. 44 million square miles of ocean we're protecting with the US Coast Guard and the Navy and the Air Force, and that's what we did. So now the Army, all of that too, not just boots on the ground. So the story, when I left the Army and they had me come up here to Jacksonville to recruit, I said this was easy. Who's not going to want to join the Army? I mean, you can just serve 4 years and go home. But if you want to do all this stuff, oh, and by the way, while I was at Key West, I decided to get my master's degree, and I never paid a single penny for it. I didn't even pay for a book. There's something called tuition assistance, which lets you go to school while you're in the Army, and they pay for everything. That's not the GI Bill. I have a senior at University of Alabama who has used my GI Bill. And he will use it again this year. And I have he's a sophomore now, sophomore at the University of Miami, and he has 1 year of my GI Bill also. So right there, I have pushed my GI Bill to my children. And so instead of paying 8 years of college, I'm going to pay 3. So they gave to me and they gave to my children. And that was just because I raised my hand. So 16 years I've been in the Army. I'm going to stay until they kick me out. No more other jobs. And I'm going to take advantage of everything.
I did get accepted to Rutgers, and I found out that the Army's going to pay 50% of my tuition. Just because I signed a few pieces of paper saying that after my PhD, I'd stay in the Army for 2 more years. That was rough. I was going to stay anyways. And do that. Now, I've seen Les before, and I've talked to Les, and he's been at when I've talked about my story. And the story is that it's a great and it's a fun story. When people ask me why I joined the Army, I tell them all the different ways about the kids. But in the end, my father, before he passed away, used to say that I was just patriotic. And we used to shy away from that word because it was silly, right? Oh, people make fun because you're patriotic. But yeah, I am patriotic. I grew up patriotic, and I'm proud to be patriotic. But what I'm trying to say about being patriotic is, yes, you can join the Army because they're patriotic, but you can also join the Army because it offers so much. And right now, the Army's offering even more. And this is why I'm coming here to talk to you. Not just us, all the services are we're not struggling. We are challenged right now in this day and age because not that there isn't patriotism, but I think that some kids and young adults don't know all the stuff that there is to offer. They don't know about the certificates. They're so ingrained that you graduate, you go to college, or you get a job. And now you have stores and factories that are offering college. I mean, I wonder where they learned that from. I see these commercials, and they're the Army commercials from 20 years ago. They're just starting. They're offering these things, but what they don't offer, and they offer a high wage, and they offer them to go to school. That's great. But there's other things too, like community and being a part of something. And also there's things called BAH. So the Army pays me a salary, and I also get free health care. But what you don't realize is they pay me to live too. So on top of your salary, you get a monthly paycheck, which equals how much your mortgage is or your rent. And so besides my paycheck, I just bought a house in St. Augustine, and I just pay my mortgage because the Army's paying it for me as long as I serve for them. And that's what they give me for the sacrifice. I think I paid a medical bill. I haven't in 16 years. I think I got the first one for one of my sons. I'm like, what is this? And I gave it to my family soldier advocate, and she took care of it. So all of those other things are why I'm telling you that is that we're here because we need your help. We need your help to spread the word and spread the message. The Department of Defense, the chairman of the Department of Defense, and has decided that to help people decide that maybe the Army's a little better is to give some incentives. And so Staff Sergeant Reed, she is a recruiter here in Jacksonville South, and she's here in this area. And she's going to tell you what the incentives are right now. So when you're talking to people in the community, you can tell them what the Army's giving people to enlist right now.
So right now we're offering up to $25,000 to shield within 30 days. So say if you know somebody that's like really struggling and they need a plan, like the Army will give them a plan so they can pretty much take care of what they need to take care of. But they have to complete basic training and AIT. Once they complete those two, they get the funds. They would also, for seniors, non-new seniors, we offer them like any job that they want. We open up all the jobs. So paralegal, construction, engineer,
Computer science,
police officers, like anything that they want, we pretty much offering for them. And they were also offering 2+2. You can do 2 years reserves and 2 years active duty. So say if you know somebody that don't want to leave Jacksonville, so they can do 2 years reserves here in Jacksonville, and if they like it, they can go 2 years active duty. So that's pretty much all that's that we offer right now. It's more to come. We're just trying to, gain towards the younger generation, younger adults, and try to get them a part of the team.
we're also letting them choose their duty station for their first assignment. So parents who don't want their child to leave home at 18, they finish basic training in AIT. Say if they're in Jacksonville here, they can go serve at Fort Stewart, which is only a 2-hour drive from Jacksonville. Or they could pick any duty station in CONUS. Say the kid always wanted to go to Hawaii. All of a sudden now they get to choose and they're stationed in Hawaii. They can go in with a buddy also. And then there's other bonuses. For certain MOSs, they're giving up to $50,000. So if you picked a specific MOS that we really need you in, it's short, and then you decided you were going to ship within 30 days, you're looking at up to $75,000 just to join the Army. And they get that. They split it over 2 years. They give them the first half 1 year and the second half the next year. And so those are the incentives that just the Army is offering right now for soldiers and for enlistees. They can serve 4 years, get all those certifications. I don't know if you know what a black belt is. I'm a black belt in Lean Six Sigma, and I got it for free. My husband's company paid about $50,000 for him to be a black belt, and I got it for free. That was the joke, of course, when I got the black belt. So there's a certification there. They can get those certifications. If you're a truck driver, you can get your CDL. So when you get out, you can work as a truck driver. The Army pays for the CDL, which is about a $10,000 certificate. So those are just the beginning. The computer science guys, they get all of the certificates you need to run a computer science software systems, the Word, all those. My son's a computer science minor. I'm paying for him to get those at Alabama. And here I got E5s, E6s getting them for free. So, and they're going to leave with not the bachelor degree, but certificates in computer science that he'll have. And who's going to be more employable? I want the kid with the certificates who knows how to use the stuff, not that they hung out for 4 years. So I hung out for 4, so I know I was just hanging out. So what I'm trying to say to you is we're here to spread the message. We really need your help. The last thing is that Sergeant and I in front of the flag, and we're honored to, and we do it voluntarily. And so I stand in front of the flag so that everybody else can live behind it and live free behind it. And every single day I wake up, I will stand in front of the flag, and she will stand in front of the flag. What we need is to get the message out that it is an honor and a privilege to stand in front of the flag so that everyone else can live free behind it. And so with that, I would like to celebrate the Army birthday. So can we please have the youngest person in the room? And I think you might be, but we got 2 youngins back there. So how old are you, Sergeant? 30. Is anyone younger than 30? Oh, boy. He looks old because he's got 3 kids. Yep, you are. Come on. He's been hanging out. And you are. Then we need the oldest person in the room.
All right, Mike. Come on, Mike.
I just said my birthday.
You get the cake first.
Yeah, you're gonna be. Wow. George. This is sobering. Wow. Wow.
So come on over here. Don't worry, it is very sharp.
Oh, don't worry, it is very sharp.
That's all right. They teach us
I
how to
like
use
that.
them.
All right, so.
So what we're gonna do is, this is a tradition in the Army. The oldest and the youngest members are going to cut the cake. All right. So what you're gonna do is you're both gonna hold on.
You put your
Sword,
hand over
both
there,
of you.
sorry.
Put yours
I'll
on
go
top. And you have to wait because we have to get our photo moment.
Okay, we're gonna cut it in half.
Now,
too.
you're not gonna go.
Oh.
So, or you can. It's up to you.
Yeah.
So right down the middle, please.
Down the middle.
Yes.
Okay, are you ready? I'm ready. All right, so we're gonna just kind of go tip first. Yeah. Okay. Whoa.
Oh,
That's
happy
even more
birthday, US
No, we gotta
Army.
push.
Very
Is that all the way
nice.
down? And do it like Mo
I
does,
tried.
okay? You do it like this.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know if we
You
want
let the other
you
person.
in the
No,
army.
You let the other person.
Please enjoy the cake, and thank you for having us today. Oh,
Open it up.
Wow.
are there any questions, if anyone has any for the sergeant or I?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
One, thank you for your service,
Thank you.
all of you. And I understand, I mean, I raised 3 kids of my own, and they didn't go to the military, but I never stopped to think about the generational shift. I'm not as old as this geezer, but you know, not so long ago, I was coming out of high school, and about a third of the class went in the military, about a third of the class went into employment, and about a third of the class went to college. And I think somewhere between my high school graduation and now, everything has just kind of evolved to train the parents to train the kids.
Sure.
College. And is that what is the challenge?
We have a very interesting time in history. This is the very first time in the United States history where we have a group of kids and young adults, 18-year-olds, parents, who do not have a direct descendant who served in the military. Our World War II veterans are gone. Our Vietnam veterans are leaving us, our Korean veterans. So you have a whole group of kids who didn't hear the stories. They haven't seen the flag and they haven't heard the sacrifices. They cannot relate to it right now. And you have, I mean, when it was the war, I mean, I joined during a time of war, you joined during a time of war, it was different. But right now, we came out of the war. So now these kids don't even remember in the beginning of the war. Yeah, after a while it lagged on, people forgot about us and you just watched other things in the news and we were still there fighting. But in the beginning, it was all about that. Those kids joined. The last 10 years, we weren't on the news unless you saw something, one little catastrophe about us, right? So even these kids, since they were 8, they don't remember us being over there. So yes, that is a time in history that's different. That's a very good question. Thank you. So my youngest son actually is going to be a sophomore. He just went to the recruiter for the reserves because he has a college scholarship. He runs cross country and track at Miami, but he can be in the reserves, be in college, and get the GI Bill. So they gave me a partial scholarship to Miami. They'll give him money to go, and when he gets out, he serves 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer.
Miami's not cheap.
No, I know. So yeah, that's why the PhD.
Yes.
So- Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
What's scarier, jumping out of an airplane or going into a cave in Afghanistan?
Okay, but I'll tell you something great. Have you ever heard of the Golden Knights parachute team?
Sure.
Last week I jumped with them, 15,000 feet, flying out of the airplane, just jumping. It was the greatest thing ever. So we had a bunch of school teachers in Georgia and Florida jump with the Golden Knights last week at Fort Stewart. We had called the National Ed Tour and I jumped with them. I have to tell you, my stomach was a little queasy, but free falling that minute and a half was unbelievable. It was just phenomenal. 120 miles an hour, you're free falling. Going into a cave, very scary. I heard my uncle's stories. He was a tunnel rat in Vietnam because he was little. He happened to not until he was, had left Vietnam. And he told me stories about going down there with nothing but a pistol. And when you go into those caves, you're very, very scary. You think you were scared, right? We've been under mortar attack, things like that. I wasn't scared. I was angry and mad. And you don't think you're going to run towards the fire? You do. Because I was making it home to the boys. So yeah, that was scary. But jumping out, the best thing was the Golden Knights jump. You were there. That was amazing. I think that's a good question. Any, yes?
Where do you hope to be deployed to after your tour here?
Lieutenant Colonel here, and then I'll leave. And then I'd love to go back to Europe. My husband passed away last year, so it really is just me and my dog. And so it's the sky's the limit. Korea is amazing. Maybe I can go there. Go back to Europe. We'll see. Hawaii's always a good one. Over there. Anywhere. The Army, all the bases that they have around the world and in the United States are lovely. I mean, seriously, we have just wonderful people in here.
How many recruiting battalions have previously been?
Only this one, sir. I've never been in recruiting.
Wow.
Right. So the Army tried, it's called Tell Your Story. My new battalion commander, who's joining us next week, he's a pilot. He is, our last one who's leaving was a human resources, but he had been a recruiter before. Our pilot has never been a recruiter, but as he told me on the phone, I want to tell my story about why I joined the Army, why I'm a pilot. So to learn how to recruit is telling your story and teaching all the good things about the Army. Now, Sergeant Reed went to school to be a recruiter. What's your MOS? So she's paralegal too. That's why you're so smart. We have to have a very high score to be a paralegal. It's all based on your scores too, your entrance. Now, I'll tell you, I wanted to add this. The ASVAB, which is the Military Entrance Requirement Exam, this is a unique fun fact. We'll do a fun fact. This is the only standardized test left in the United States where you cannot use a calculator. That is why 30% of the people who take it fail it right now out of high school. So you wanted to know our trouble? You got kids who can't do mental math. Think about your kids or grandkids or kids on the road. They have to use a calculator. They can't make change. So we're also struggling with that. If you're a kid out of high school in Puerto Rico, you're going to pass the ASVAB because they still teach it. In fact, they're one of our #1 recruiting destinations, Puerto Rico. The amount of people that serve out of Puerto Rico is way above any state in the continental United States, even though they're not states. But they actually learn mental math because when they're young, if they are asked if they have any inclination for the military, the education system in Puerto Rico makes sure that they learn mental math. That's not going to change either with the calculator for the ASVAB. And why would it? I am not in the middle of a cave and able to use a calculator. I don't have a GPS. I have to read a map. And that's why you have to. If you're on a tank, you're not going to get GPS signal where to use devices. So you have to be able to do all those calculations. All the chemical calculations we had to do for a chemical officer, we have to do them in our head or on pieces of paper. We get to learn all that. Yes, sir?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So, like Department of Education or any other, I guess, agencies or groups outside of the military overlay the results of the ASVAB to kind of correlate a decline or.
Yes, they have. That's a really good point. Yes, they have. In fact, I just read, they're called white papers. We have general officers who write white papers, and I just contributed to one with what's called the community paper. The community paper is what our battalion created, and what my boss and I foresee the biggest problem for the future of the Army. And I said, it's that. It's the decline of basic skills in our education system for high schoolers. That's the biggest decline for our national defense, because we see it as a national defense issue, because it's not just a bunch of kids who can't do mental math. It's yours and my national defense. Yes, so right now, congressmen are constantly engaged. Senator Scott is always with us. We have senators that we talk to and our bosses talk to, but it's more than that. They're trying, but there's just no budget. They just keep giving them the calculators and not teaching the other way. Do you see anything else about that? You're there, you watch them.
Yeah, all the time. So So what we do, we signed them up for a March success. It's a program that helps them increase their ASVAB score. So sometimes I even like break down the test to see where they struggling at, and I show them how to do it by hand, by paper and stuff. And they don't have to use the calculator.
So the recruiters are not only recruiters, now they're teachers. So they're giving the computer programs. We cannot teach them, teach to the test. That's when I left teaching, when you have to teach to the test. But that's not why I left. But they can't teach to the test. You have intelligent kids out there who want to join, but they just don't have the ability to pass the test. These kids are good kids. They just can't pass the test. Their heart and their. So we do have a computer program called March to Success, and it's supposed to help.
Wow.
Mhm. Are there any
Okay.
other questions?
I think we're out of time.
Okay, well, thank you.
As a way of thanking you for making our day so excellent, here is a certificate that made a donation in your honor to the Rotary Foundation for the Eradication of Polio. Thank you again.
Oh, I
You
love
can do
that.
that.
I'm getting my polio shot as a kid. We all thought it was eradicated from the world, remember? Now I am saying how old I am.
Thank you. This has been amazing. Let's see, what happened to the sword? No, it's gone. Next week, our speaker will be Tim Cost, president of JU. Please sign up for the Hail and Farewell on June 28th, right here in the Doubletree at 6 p.m. As we end our meeting, I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
The oldest
He has
member in
to
the
do.
room.
The oldest member in the room.
I didn't realize that when I walked in today.
And the way to do it is to lead everybody in the Rotary motto, ring the bell, but they're all looking at you.
Okay,
All right?
do that.
Okay, as we end our meeting, we remember our membership motto, each one bring one, and please join me in our club motto, service above self.
One cause most to serve the best.
And now Mike.